I'm Dr. Ryan DeBell from The Movement Fix. Welcome back to Movement Fix Monday. I'm at Metier Racing and Coffee. Did I say that right?
Yep, perfect.
At Racing and Coffee with Chris Johnson. This is like a coffee house, restaurant, workout facility. Chris practices here in the downstairs in this beautiful facility. We are on the top deck, kind of looking over. And what we want to talk about are some variations that people can use in bench pressing and push-ups to stress different parts of the shoulder as modifications if they have pain in their shoulder. So they can still train, but train doing things a little bit differently so they can do it without increasing their pain or worsening things. And there's some interesting structural changes or structural positions in the shoulder that happen depending on how we grip the bench or put our hands in the push-up. So I'm going to give the mic over to Chris. He's going to take me through the bench variations. I'm going to take him through some push-up variations.
So as Ryan mentioned, there are implications to different grips when we're talking about bench press. I know that most people are wondering why I'm talking about bench pressing as someone who is focused on running and triathlon, but roll with me here. I do bench press.
And you know a lot about the shoulder.
Yeah, well, so let's get after it. So let's have you jump up on this pristine bench.
Massage. Who doesn't bench press on a massage table?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So Ryan's set up in what we think of as a standard bench press grip or overhand grip, which involves a pronated forearm. And the implications of this are such that it's going to expose the supraspinatus tendon in particular to perhaps getting impinged under the anterior aspect of the acromion. So if someone...
Keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, this is life. We have sirens in the background. I feel like I'm back in New York City. That's why it was sort of startling there for a second. So if we talk about someone who's dealing with perhaps a lesion of the rotator cuff involving the supraspinatus tendon, we don't necessarily need to have them stop bench pressing altogether. We can unload them by simply having them switch to an underhand grip. So all you're doing is going from a pronated to a supinated position, which is exactly what Ryan's showing here. So that way we just introduce some variability into the equation. Now on the flip side of the coin, we also hear of a lot of people dealing with pathology involving the long head of the biceps, which a lot of times we'll hear of people with fraying or more degenerative tissue, which oftentimes I'll call wrinkles on the inside. And in that particular context, you want the athlete to use a pronated grip because that's going to help to clear the long head of the biceps. So go back to a standard grip. So again, now the other thing to point out is most times we want someone using a grip that's about 1.5 times biacromial width. So translation of that, if we talk about the acromion, which is a hook-shaped bone at the end of the shoulder here, you want it to go 1.5 times. There's a great article that discusses this in more detail called Upper Extremity Weightlifting Modifications for the Overhead Athlete or the Injured Athlete. And Fees, F-E-E-S, is the lead author on that. AJSM, you can check it out. Do you have any questions?
Nope.
Okay, so...
Okay, so that's a couple different bench press variations, and as Chris was saying, if it's painful to go pronated, we can do different hand positions on a barbell, or you could even use dumbbells and go more sort of like neutral grip. Yeah. But if you can find it, rather than just not doing those movements, find a way to alter the grip. You can change the shoulder position so that you can actually do the same movement and keep training, but not make things worse. So, psychologically, it's really important for athletes and patients to keep doing stuff without having to be like, oh, I can't do anything. Yeah. So, I don't recommend doing these on a massage table, but it's what we had available with the area where you could actually see us with the lighting. Now, similar to the bench press, push-ups can also be a place where people have pain in their shoulders. And so we can modify hand position in a push-up as well. So I think you can hop up here maybe. And we'll go through some push-up hand position variation. So obviously the standard push-up, people will have their fingertips pointed forward, and that's very similar to an overhand grip on the bench press. So if somebody has pain with that, it doesn't mean you can't do push-ups, because what if you rotated your hands out? So if you went palms out and you could do push-ups there, because we're rotating the humerus, we're changing the structures that are in a quote-unquote compromised position in the shoulder. So someone could do push-ups like that. Imagine you could also do push-ups like, when people do push-ups, if your foot go through the face piece, that's awesome. Imagine, so this is totally fine to do, especially if it's pain-free for the athlete. They can still do push-ups without aggravating their shoulder. And if you want to be even more similar to that underhand grip that we did on the bench press, you could go fingertips down. Now this is a little bit more stressful on the wrist. So if somebody has wrist pain, obviously this might not be the best idea. But people could, or you could just do static holds. For some people, even doing knee push-ups here, even if they're very strong at standard push-ups, is what they'll have to do because it's so much more challenging. So those are a couple hand position options in the push-ups. So you could keep working out, but not stress or aggravate the shoulder in a way that's going to make things worse. So benching and push-ups, just because your hands aren't in the standard or what we think of as the right way to do it, doesn't mean it's a bad exercise. It means that we're providing some, as we just discussed in the podcast that we posted, variability in training. You're varying what's under the most stress or what's being impinged in the shoulder while you do those exercises. So those are some great modifications. Awesome. So that's what I got for you guys for this week on Move It Fix Monday. Thank you, Chris Johnson, PT, for sharing your thoughts and allowing me and allowing us to film this video in this beautiful space. Make sure to check Chris out on social media. I'll put the links in the description. And if you guys don't already follow the Move It Fix on Facebook, make sure to go to facebook.com/The Move It Fix. And I'm also on Instagram @The Move It Fix. See you guys next week.